Pecker's my nice movie. I had to go in front of the MPAA. They said we couldn't use the title. And I thought a pretty good speech, because I've always wanted to be a lawyer, where I said things like, what angry child ever carves the word pecker in his decks? No sexist men say, suck my pecker to a woman. And then I thought, how about Free Willy? You allowed that in London. How about Shaft? And I named all these movies, and they were just looking at me. And then they said, okay.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum!
Astro Radios is a horror, cult, exploitation film podcast by filmmakers, critics, musicians, journalists, and fans for the film obsessed. Here is your host, Derek Terry.
I can laugh when things ain't funny. Happy-go-lucky me. Yeah, I can smile when I ain't got no money. Happy-go-lucky me.
Well, Mary, I hope you got your pit beef sandwich and your pubic hairs all trimmed up, because you've come to the right place. We're going to talk about John Waters PECKER tonight.
Pecker.
His name is Pecker.
Give me a pose. Give me some candy. Oh, honey, no. No, that's enough chocolate. Say sugar.
A small-town boy with big-time talent.
You're my Venus de Milo, you know that?
You're crazy. You see art when there's nothing there.
Who's just looking for his big break.
Let's hear it for Larry the Luckhead. Larry's 21 years old. Currently makes his living as a burglar.
I can't figure out what this one is. I kind of like it.
You might make a real career out of this. How much?
You're gonna buy it?
Yeah, because I love your look. And I'd love to give you a show at my New York gallery.
Now the New York art world can't get enough Pecker.
They really are something special.
The Whitney Museum wants to schedule a peek at Pecker. To Pecker.
We're all famous.
Are you homosexual?
No, I'm not.
You wouldn't understand that.
He's going from rogue
Show me down and dirty.
to Vogue. Edward Furlong, Christina Ricci, Martha Plimpton, Brendan Sexton III, Mink Stoll, Patricia Hearst, Mary Kay Place, and Lily Taylor in the new film directed by John Waters.
Supermodel.
Pecker.
Mother of God.
Seeing as how it's been a while since you've been on the show, Amanda, why don't you give our listeners a quick synopsis as to what is John Waters PECKER about?
Okay. PECKER, starring Edward Furlong and Christina Ricci, follows a young gentleman who is an amateur artist who gets discovered by a New York City art dealer. And his world is kind of turned upside down because he takes pictures of these kind of candid family shots, and the art world interprets it pretty negatively.
Yeah, they find it to be quaint when it's
insulting and belittling.
Yep.
And it turns Pecker's life upside down.
Exactly. We're almost at the end of our John Waters experience here, folks. And we are on what some would consider, quote unquote, the downward slide of John Waters. Now, I never thought as much because I've always liked all of the movies after Serial Mom, but a lot of people tend to think negatively about John Waters PECKER. It's going to be fun to try and say that over and over and over again tonight on this episode, which was the intention that John Waters had. Now, this, in my mind, kind of goes back to some of the irreverent old school humor of John Waters, where the vast majority of it is based on crude humor. Now, Seth, what do you think about John Waters PECKER?
I didn't know what to expect going in. I'd never seen it before watching it for this episode. So I knew it would be more Hollywood mainstream, but he did go back to some of the old school, not quite shock gags, but going for the gut a little bit. Close-up shots of Bush. As he like to put it, happy Bush, happy pubes. Some religious humor thrown in, lots of angry shouting characters. It was a lot of fun, but I didn't love it.
Well, it's the first time in about 4 or 5 movies where he's very explicitly showed gay characters and showed gay situations and talked about genitalia in the way that he has, probably since almost Desperate Living, to be honest. Angelique, what did you think of this kind of revert back to some of the grindier elements of John Waters?
Well, I mean, it kind of seemed to me a little autobiographical, really. So I enjoyed it, especially the whole teabagging discussion.
Hey, Larry, no teabagging. You know the rules. No balls on foreheads. Teabagging is forbidden here at the Fudge Palace.
Oh, I understand.
You teabag a customer one more time, Larry, and Mr. Nailbox will fire your ass.
It was funny. This isn't one of my favorites. Like I've only watched it just a couple of times, or the others I've watched, can't even count. But I mean, it was a good throwback, in a more mainstream kind of way. Not one I'm going to watch, 8,000 times like I have, Serial Mom or Pink Flamingos or, one of the upcoming ones, Dirty Shame. But I enjoyed it in a way. It was kind of, miniature John Waters story. You get big and then things kind of backfire, but then you come out on top again. So it's a feel-good story. The
funny thing is, when you say that it's sort of autobiographical, John Waters in many interviews would go on to say that actually he didn't intend this to have anything to do with his life whatsoever, because he envisions the character of Pecker, who's played by Edward Furlong, to be kind of the ultimate artist, because he's naive and he's talented and cute, but doesn't recognize this at all. He just is. Andrew, do you see a lot of John Waters in the Pecker character?
Yeah, I do. I think that to me, when I watch Pecker, I see him as a symbol of the kind of naive approach, the naive person that John Waters was going into film in his earlier movies, and kind of what it was to become a famous underground filmmaker.
Right. I actually loved some of the aspects of the first act of this film, where we see Pecker going through the streets of Hampton, which is, Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, is a suburb of Baltimore, correct?
It's a neighborhood in Baltimore.
Okay. And Pecker is just going around, just literally snapping pictures of everything. There is not one thing that he doesn't take his camera out and snap, which leads me to wonder how he got any good photos in the entire photo, or the art gallery at the sub shop, the sub pit that he works at, are literally nothing but photos that he had taken in the opening credit sequence that we saw.
Yeah, right.
But I did like that, they portrayed this character as somebody that wasn't doing it in order to get famous. It's just what his love was, and he just felt compelled to do it. What did you think of the Pecker character?
Oh, Pecker? Oh, yeah. I liked it. I liked the movie on a whole, and I liked Pecker's character.
Did you like Edward Furlong as Pecker?
Yeah, it didn't bother me. Derek and I were laying in bed, and he said that he had a tough time with Edward Furlong as Pecker a little bit. That it felt a little forced or cringy or something, I think was the word you used. I didn't feel that way. If anything, I felt that way about Brandon Sexton's character.
Why? That's interesting. I thought Brandon Sexton felt so natural as his kleptomaniac buddy.
Oh,
yeah. He just looked like some scumbag that would go around and steal things just for the hell of it.
I think it was the scenes that felt cringy to me were the scenes where they were kind of forcing him to be this super desirable, bad boy, because he's like, yeah, he's a bad boy, but he's not particularly attractive.
But I thought that was some of the joke was that he, for some reason, he thought that because he was a thief, that he should be a sex symbol and he should be getting laid like a rock star. I thought that was kind of the joke.
It was lost on me, unfortunately.
Well, it was one throwaway line. Yeah. What did everybody think about Sexton and his role as Pecker's buddy? Andrew?
I loved Brendan Sexton. I think he's hilarious. I mean, he's played that same kind of guy a lot of times, you know. I don't know what he does now as a grown up, but back then, you know, we talked about Welcome to the Dollhouse, which is where John saw him and put him in this movie. And then after that, Empire Records, which is my favorite of his roles, Warren. Who the fuck glued these quarters down, man?
My name's not fucking Warren.
Fucking Warren. Somebody else can quote that movie too. No, I thought he was good. He was almost like he walked out of the cast of Kids or something like that.
I always, for some reason, I always confuse Welcome to the Dollhouse with Kids, and I always think, well, no, not confuse the movies, but I always confuse that he was in it because he felt like he. You know, he just had that same look. He had that same feel. And I always forget, no, he was in Welcome to the Dollhouse. He's not in Kids because he just has that kind of real, I don't want to be derogatory, just white trashy kind of, you know.
No, he does. But he's a good foil for Pecker because Pecker would not work as a goofy John Waters character. The movie wouldn't work if Pecker was self-aware or wide-eyed or in any kind of a way. So you want a guy like that to be opposite of him.
Right. And I thought, like Amanda said, how I had said that some of Furlong's performance is a little cringy to me. It's mostly because I think of any of the characters in this movie, he is obviously the focal point, but he has to play this kind of squeaky clean, very innocent character. And I think he overdoes it at times. And it could be some of the dialogue he's given is like the "aw shucks" kind of dialogue. You know what I mean?
It's not John Waters' favorite kind of character to write. In fact, it's very unusual for him to have to write a guy like that. And probably why it feels that way is because that's not what that's not what he does. It's not the kind of character
the roles the characters were used to see.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, because every other character in this movie feels like a John Waters character. They feel very natural.
Just a little amped up from normal quirky foibles.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's how I have always interpreted in at least the more recent John Waters films like Serial Mom. So any of these people, if you just stuck them in any town and you in the middle of the United States right now, people wouldn't look twice at them necessarily, other than they're kind of like at an 11, if you know what I mean.
You think that?
Yeah. And that's how I feel about all of the parental figures in this film.
Okay.
I don't see them as being
they're
typically over the top, like super crazy, wacky, out of control, like the sister.
Well,
who works in the gay bar and whatever else, but they're still a little eccentric.
They definitely have certain facets to the characters where they were obsessed. Everyone in John Waters films are obsessed with something. Mm-hmm. I think that's a major character trait to everybody that's in his movies. Yeah. But of anybody, the parents and Pecker are supposed to be kind of just like happy-go-lucky. Mm-hmm. We love our lives, and this is who we are, and we're very unapologetic about it. Where everybody else in this film are just batshit bonkers. And let's talk about some of these other characters. Angelique, of any of the characters in Pecker, who was your favorite?
Me Mama.
Full of grace! Full of grace! See? She's talking.
Could be a real miracle.
What was it about Me Mama that you loved? And tell my listeners who Me Mama was.
Me Mama was Pecker's grandmother, and I do not know the beautiful woman who played her. I don't know her real life name, but she is extremely Catholic, pit beef chef, works in the front yard, serving beef to the masses and going to mass.
Yeah.
She's gone. She's full of grace.
Well, her main thing is that, like as you said, she sells out front of their house because she lives with Pecker and Pecker's family. It's a big family that all live under one roof. in this neighborhood of Baltimore, which is, Seth, would you say it's kind of maybe on the lower middle class range?
At that time, yeah, it's kind of hipstery, gentrified now, but back then, yeah, it was kind of a trashier neighborhood.
So me mama has a pit beef stand outside of the house where she sells pit beef sandwiches. Now, Seth, what are pit beef sandwiches?
Similar to barbecue, but kind of on the different spectrum. It's kind of just take a metal grate, put some coals under it, and you just blast it. It's high heat cooking, and it chars the outside, but leaves the middle kind of medium rare, and it's great. It's just a beef.
Is it sauced?
Charred to shit.
In any
What's
way?
that?
Is it sauced or seasoned any way, like a dry rub before it's thrown on? Or
no, generally you just let the meat go, and condiments are up to you. Around Baltimore, horseradish either straight up or with mayo mixed in, called tiger sauce.
Tiger sauce.
Oh, I've heard of tiger sauce before.
I'm not sure if it was named for Towson University Tigers, but it could have been. I don't know. I hate mayonnaise, so I've never had that. But
amen, brother.
Pit beef just straight up on like a Kaiser roll is perfection to me.
And this has been just a Baltimore tradition for
Absolutely.
forever?
For as long as I've known.
Interesting, because I have obviously no fucking clue what pit beef is. Has anyone here other than Seth had pit beef?
I've had it. It was delightful. I was like, I didn't want any of that horseradish or mustard or whatever they have with it. But I did take ketchup. I found was good on it.
I am a lover of horseradish, which is strange considering I don't really like white cream based condiments.
Sauces,
yeah, but
never got any tiger sauce on your pant leg?
Nope. No tiger sauce on my pant.
No tiger sauce from your pecker.
Oh my gosh, you guys are fucking
put your vagina on the phone.
So me mama, she makes these pit beef sandwiches out front, and then she is basically convinced, because she has this ventriloquist dummy of the Virgin Mary, that Virgin Mary speaks through her, and anybody that'll sit and listen can go up to her shrine of the Virgin Mary and listen as she puts her hand up its back and makes it say "full of grace" in the silliest way possible.
Full of grace. It sounds like a parrot almost. The voice is so high pitched, like if a parrot would say it.
Yeah.
Full of grace. Full of grace.
I think one of the best scenes in the entire movie is when, after Pecker becomes this overnight sensation in the art world for his photographs, after Lily Taylor takes him and has a gallery showing in New York. Yeah, I've always loved her as an actress. That some people, because Mi Mama is shown on Art Forum magazine with the Virgin Mary, because that's one of Pecker's various photos that he's taken. She has some visitors from the local Catholic church show up.
Grace! You're saying that yourself. What do you mean? You heard me, faker.
Me, Mama, I need Mary's help. Oh, you have company.
This is my grandson, Pecker. Pecker, these are the friends of Mary. Or so they say. They're not being very nice to her.
We can see her lips moving.
It's just a matter of faith, ladies. Here, come on. Shut your eyes and think of the color blue.
Oh, no, you don't. Heretic. Mariolatry is not a joke.
I've always loved that scene.
And then, well, sadly, so they bitch at her and really go crazy on her. And then Mi Mama says that the Virgin Mary no longer compels her to speak, and the Virgin Mary doesn't speak for the rest of the film, with the exception of the
miracle
sequence.
at the
miracle at the very end, the closest sequence. And I was losing it last night at that scene, because Mi Mama looks genuinely so upset. Like, she was the keeper of this gift and of this miracle, and it was taken away from her. And that was such an insult to her faith and to her identity. And she just looks so upset, just blown to bits by it.
Right. Well, I think her and everybody else that surrounds Pecker and his world are just so genuine about who they are, and they don't like hold back.
Unapologetic.
Very unapologetically themselves, that once they intertwine with the art world of New York City, they feel very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because those people were entirely fake and didn't let themselves out, in a similar theme that we've seen a million times over now in John Waters films about it's always better to be yourself than to try and be something you're not. It always is the underlying message in almost every single one of these films. Now, Seth, who was your favorite character in Pecker?
I think it's Little Chrissy.
Sugar.
Incorrect.
Like 9 or 10-year-old little sugar fiend from hell, but just the sweetest little girl. No pun intended. Just she would do anything for a box of candy. She'd rob the homeless lady.
Yeah.
She would beg for a can of soda as Pecker went out the door. And that was all before the Ritalin. The Child Protective Services came and forced Ritalin on her.
Yeah.
And then her love of vegetables was cracking me up. I lost it. One of my favorite scenes, the rolled dollar bill, and she starts snorting peas.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I think she's great. The scene, I think John Waters said Night of the Living Dead was the influence, when she's sitting there with just a bag of sugar, spooning it into her mouth, and the wet sugar's just dripping out. And so gross, but so funny and innocent.
Little Chrissy. Say sugar.
Sugar.
Oh, I love you, little Chrissy. No matter what.
Yeah, I could totally like see that character is real, because my youngest daughter is very obsessed the same way if any sweets come near her.
Yeah, we keep them very monitored.
Because she turns into a monster.
Fucking demon. I never believed that sugars affected children. I have done research in school on this. I've never believed it. And then a 3-year-old entered my life.
Yeah, I like little Chrissy in this movie. She's really cute. Andrew, who's your favorite?
I like Shelley the most, Christina Ricci's character. I just I can really identify with being the person who's watching one of their friends or somebody they care about possibly become an asshole in that one part where, because I've known a lot of actors, musicians, all kinds of people and artists, everything, and watch the way they change when they get some of that juice, and there's one part where she says, please do not become an asshole. I beg of you, do not become an asshole. And you're just like, I know, Shelley, dude, I know. And plus, man, I was I had a crush on Christina Ricci for many years. I thought she was,
oh yeah,
when before she got kind of gaunt looking at a certain point around the Black Snake Moon and there forward, but around the time of Buffalo 66, anybody remember that one?
Oh, Buffalo 66 made me fall in love with her for many years.
Yeah, the opposite years. Of sex also. So I liked her for that reason, but plus I thought she was the most normal person in the movie. It was neat. I mean, in what could arguably be John Waters' most normal story.
Most normal story, but most of the characters are pretty bonkers.
They'd have to be to balance that out. They'd have to.
Absolutely. I liked Christina Ricci's character mostly because when she was so dedicated to her work at the laundromat, like she could not fathom anything outside of that laundromat.
I'm pissing that part in my tires right now. I know it.
She had that anxiety breakdown at that dinner.
Yeah.
Being away from work for too long.
I should be at home my laundromat doing my job. I'm sure it will be okay. You don't know what my customers are like. They wait for me to go out of town so they can defy my rules.
You're just imagining things.
They could be pissing in my dryers as we speak.
It's going to be. Oh, yeah.
And the entire time, she's just looking at this chick who could give two shits about anything she's saying.
Yeah, the lady's trying to calm her down, talking about, it's like, I'm sure it'll be fine.
They're pissing in.
They're pissing in the dryers right now. I know it.
Oh my God. She's just screaming at these people. She loves that job, but she just screams at everyone in the fucking laundromat the whole time.
She's also kind of losing her identity in that setting, you know, and so she's grasping for a foothold because she becomes just Pecker plus one, you know.
Yeah,
some of us have been
very
there
much
too.
so. Amanda, who would you say?
Me, Mama, hands down. I just appreciate her shtick.
She's very memorable.
So genuine, and I just love it.
I've had full of grace. Every time I see any religious thing, immediately that pops into my head.
See, it's the same with me, except for it's the show in full bush line.
Well,
but I've never been very religious, so.
Full bush equals crime.
Your pubic hair causes crime. My favorite part is when the old man puts his hands over. No. It's not that. It's when Brendan Sexton goes, "It's the pubic hair of a stripper." In the middle of the art show, because they got the shot of the beaver and everybody's like, I don't know what it is, but
what is
it?
My favorite part is when they're when they're at the
strip club.
No. What's it? The claw grabber? Is that his dad's bar?
The claw machine.
Yeah, the claw machine.
The claw, when they're at the claw machine and the dad's talking with Pecker and their the old guy that always frequents there, and they decide to do earmuffs on little Chrissy, and he goes, "I hear they show full bush."
Full bush. Every time I see this movie, I laugh out loud hard at that shit right there. That and the pubic hair of a stripper thing. Just got some of my favorite lines of John Waters movies are in this movie.
Well, that whole scene where they're hamming up the fact that this is a lesbian, these are strippers who are lesbians. It just
strippers, but it's not a lesbian strip. It's a lesbian strip club because they're lesbians,
right?
But it's for straight people.
But it's for straight guys, and it cracks me up because these chicks walk out and they're just like, "What are you looking at?" Well, they're like yelling and emasculating these guys. What did she say? These beef curtains are what? I can't. What the hell did she say? That we lost it last night watching.
These beef curtains are flying free, or something like that.
These beef curtains are flying free, or whatever. And she's like so gruff about it. And she just like doesn't. She just like doesn't care that she's not even trying to be sexy. She's just kind of flopping her lower half around.
Yeah, and all the guys, and all the guys when they start doing the raid on the place for showing full bush and everything, everyone else, all the guys outside are going, "We want bush! We 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 want bush!"
That was such a hilarious scene.
Yeah. I gotta say, my favorite character's gotta be the sister. It's got every single time she's on, she is that small town kind of like, she's white trashy, but she loves her life and doesn't care about how white trashy she is to anybody. She's not hiding it. And every time that they show her at the Fudge Palace, and she's announcing, emceeing for all of these strippers, these dudes in jock straps, just barely dancing on top of this rickety old bar.
Again, just flapping their pelvis around.
Just flapping it around. And she just kills me. Literally kills me every time she's on screen, calling everyone Marys.
Yeah.
And it constantly asking.
You got a little in ya.
Yeah.
Little in your loafers.
Yeah. When she's reading the paper, it's like, "Are you a homosexual?" "No, I'm not." "Well, you wouldn't understand."
That's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie.
No, that's what Martha Plimpton, man. She was usually not. She usually played like in dramas or at least like very serious kind of characters. I don't think I'd ever seen her do anything like that before.
Well, as we had talked about before, this was a major coup for John Waters, would be to get these actors and actresses to come in and play totally against type. And the thing is, every single one of them would go on afterwards and do nothing but praise John Waters and speak kindly of him because he didn't push them to do anything they didn't want to do. It was such a nice, happy set on every one of these films that this is why there's this continual cast of characters we keep seeing over and over and over again, because they kept wanting to come back and be in these movies because they had such a good time doing it. Now, the only one that we had seen in the last few films that wasn't able to come back was Ricki Lake.
Yeah.
And the reason she's not in this movie is because at the time her show, the Ricki Lake Show, was big enough that the producers of the show basically said, no, you can't go do that John Waters movie, because they wanted her to have a different image. So unfortunately, Ricki Lake's not in this. I would have loved to have seen her in this movie, because she was definitely missing. Now, some of the other great characters that are in this and great actors and actresses that are in this, we have Mink Stole again, Lily Taylor, who I've always loved in just about, and at that time she was in a lot of really great roles. She plays the art gallery agent who secretly has a crush on Pecker and tries to seduce him away from Christina Ricci.
How quickly he fumbles in that one moment.
Well,
for the art, Pecker. Okay.
It's for the art.
It's for the art. And then we have Patricia Hearst coming back in a great scene where she pushes her tits together.
Yeah.
And this is another great cast of characters that he's put. And let's go ahead and let's talk about the story itself. And what do you guys think of, compared to some of the other films we have seen probably in the last 4 or 5 episodes that we've done this? How did you think that this story and how it was laid out kind of stacked up against his more mainstream stuff? Seth?
I think it was a natural progression. It just feels like a very standard Hollywood production as far as the story goes. Of course, with the John Waters touch, but very natural beginning, middle, end. You can almost see where it's going. The characters all get affected in ways you'd expect them to. Christina Ricci gets to fit in one of the most amazing lines in all of John Waters' filmography, I think, with "I hate modern photography." But it just, it progresses as you'd expect a typical Hollywood comedy drama to progress, but it works out to be a really solid film. Just, I don't think it has a lot of the key moments that John Waters films are known for and really stand out in the memory.
So what are some of those you think it was missing?
With the close up of the the bush, I almost expected that to be raunchier. It felt like he was struggling to do John Waters and to do mainstream, where it almost felt like it was rated R, but like he was struggling to not make it PG-13,
right?
But not push the boundaries of the R. Like he was really restraining himself from making it too raunchy, but he wanted to do it, and it just felt a little uneven throughout it for me.
See, that's something where I've never thought that about this movie. I've never thought it wasn't raunchy enough, because we still have scenes where dudes are teabagging other dudes, and we have that full bush scene. Andrew, what do you think about this idea that Seth is bringing up, this kind of weird juxtaposition that doesn't seem to work between the clean and the raunchy John Waters?
Well, no, it is true that John Waters, from the later part of his career, was really kind of struggling to maintain his identity that he had as a cult figure, but make that work in terms of being able to actually get a movie financed and put out and marketed and everything else. He had that period with Polyester and Hairspray and Crybaby, where it was all of a sudden like, well, where is he in this? It's his interest, but not necessarily this kind of story that he liked to be telling, that we always seen him tell. And so this seems to be there's something kind of personal going on here. And I actually, it's the one I watched the most of his later stuff because of that. I have a lot of things I think about when I watch this, and I thought about it even more when I saw this one. But it is true, because you have the storyteller again, like with something like Hairspray, where he does have a story he wants to tell, but he has to also be John Waters as well. And so some of those things could be seen as kind of forced, because in a way, this is almost a PG-13 movie, except for when you throw in those things. It's almost like somebody went to the script and went, hey, John Waters this up, you know?
One thing, too, that I think because I don't find Pecker to be raunchy or uncomfortable for me the way that a lot of early John Waters films are. Of course, specifically Multiple Maniacs. But what I think for me, I guess, that's different in this is the tone of the raunchiness feels different somehow. And it's certainly consensual, you know, like when this dude's teabagging the other guy, he's the guy who's on the receiving end of the teabag is loving every second of it, and it's all bummed out when he can't get teabagged no more. And but in other films, in his earlier films, a lot of the raunchiness was based in sexual violence.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think some of it is, but not all of it.
Well, maybe it's because those scenes were like so jarring to me that's what I recall.
Well, there was a lot of rape in his early films.
Right.
But
yeah, and that's what I mean.
A turd in the mail too.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a turd in the mail.
Forget the turd in the mail.
And the same guy delivered the FedEx package in Pecker.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Same dude.
I didn't notice that. So I think that's probably for me what feels different between this film and earlier John Waters stuff. And again, it's probably just my own discomfort with the sexual violence that takes place in the early films and some of the forceful sex-based stuff,
how he was really pushing the buttons in the early stuff. Do you just find this more palatable? That's more your taste?
Yeah, that's what I guess I'm trying to find the words for, is to say that it's more palatable because it seems like all parties involved are enjoying it and it's consensual and it's funny. The overall feeling of it is humorous.
It's not trying to push buttons.
Right.
I think that's the distinction that you have, is that you don't like being pushed. And those early John Waters films are very confrontational.
Yeah.
They're and intentionally so. I think that's some, and I think that's a lot of the confusion, because I had this conversation come up in the conversation that Mark and I had about the Greasy Strangler on the bonus episode on the Patreon, was that I felt the Greasy Strangler held a lot of the same kind of qualities of an early era John Waters film, because I didn't find it to be a very hateful and mean-spirited film, because I don't think it was making fun of the characters that were within it. It was just showing you archetypes of people that were out of the norm and celebrating that kind of thing and making it the norm. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of John Waters, I feel, is showing you things that he doesn't feel are strange or are weird. Mm-hmm. And maybe sometimes that means some of the sexual things that may be considered perverse or out of the norm. He was much more aggressive about it in his early films, but I really don't think that there's a huge difference between kind of the playful nature that he has in, say, a Pecker than the playful nature he had in Pink Flamingos. I think it kind of is. Well, it is the same humor. It's just showcased in a different way.
And I don't find Pink Flamingos, to me, doesn't feel.
It's just, you really thought Multiple
Maniacs. I didn't hate it. It just upset me to my core. I couldn't watch it.
So Pecker is much more your style.
Yeah.
Angelique, what do you think of any of this?
Well, I mean, that is a good point. You know, this one is gleefully sexual. It's not like, you don't have Divine getting raped in an alley on the sidewalk in the middle of the day, or by a lobster monster, or, somebody being sexually assaulted with a barnyard chicken, licking a house and making it revolt against you, that sort of thing. like you said, so the teabagging, I mean, everybody was really happy about that situation. All the dancers, even the full bush dancer was really happy to be doing what she was doing. All the dudes in the gay bar really happy about it. It's the tonally. I mean, this is and I guess in the best way a John Waters movie could be, it's a feel-good movie.
Yeah, I think
it's a celebration. The whole movie feels like a celebration.
It's a farce, though. Too the whole thing is it's supposed to be a very lighthearted, kind of bouncy, fluffy movie, but with that John Waters streak of you're gonna exactly the middle finger straight to everybody that doesn't quite dig
get it.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's not as overt as some of his other films. So I tend to agree. This has always been one that I have not really revisited very much. I think maybe because when it came out, I was far more into the early era John Waters stuff, and maybe just my own personal demeanor was far more into the middle finger movies than this.
You were too hipster at the time.
No, it had nothing to do with hipster. It had everything to do with tonally. This is like you said, it's kind of a breezy kind of movie. And I think for me, this one, it starts off a little clunky and gets better as it goes along. I still feel that way. I think the first act of this movie is a little clunky. And while I find it funny, I still, it feels like such a tremendous step down from Serial Mom. Like that, just the first act of this movie, I don't know what it is. It feels like we've stepped backwards in quality as opposed to continuing on the same path. And I think about like once the second act hits, then it hits its stride.
Well, Serial Mom is a movie from John Waters that starts off with a bang and never lets up. The characters are like in full swing. Within the first 10 minutes, you see Serial Mom calling Mink Stole a pussy face.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like from the very first moments of that movie, it's like, okay, here we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas with Pecker, it's not necessarily the case.
I think just some of the various elements, like I said, Edward Furlong at first feels really clunky to me. And it also breathes a lot more in the beginning than some of the other John Waters movies where he like went for the jugular right away, like Serial Mom or Desperate Living and stuff like that, where he just like, he grabbed you by the scruff of the neck and forced your face down into that comedy. And this one feels like it builds and it builds. And while I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite John Waters movies, I do enjoy it. I think there's a lot of really funny shit in this movie. Angelique, where would you kind of place this? Do you find this to be a good one, or is there anything that bothers you about this one?
No, nothing bothers me about it. I just, it's not, like I said, it's a good movie, but it's not one that I've ever had that real desire to watch like some of the other ones. It kind of is like, oh yeah, he did that one too. Well, why not? Let's watch it.
Right. Andrew, you had made reference to that this makes you think about a lot of things. What does this kind of spark in your mind when you're watching it?
Well, I love this movie, like of his second half or later era stuff. This one's my favorite. This is the one I watched the most. I think this one's the funniest. It's because it's not goofy, and it seems like he was actually had a movie that he wanted to make. It feels more indie than anything since probably Desperate Living. But I also think because of that, and he was able to survive for, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So he did that not from an accident. He just kept reinventing what he was doing. And I loved the path that he was kind of on with this one. But no, I think just going with the idea that this might be some kind of an inadvertent commentary on what happened to the Dreamlanders and some of his feelings that he might have had about Divine being dead, and had they not become famous, would Divine have lived? I start thinking about that when I watch this, and I know that probably he doesn't mean that. I know that nobody else but me probably thought that, but it has a kind of like a heaviness for me. that I find just like super interesting. And it's kind of, it's hard to not see it as kind of a comment on maybe the fan perception of what happened to him in his career.
I think that's a good point to bring up, because there was a interview that I had read of John Waters where I believe it was Patricia Hearst was being asked about what it was like to be on the set of Pecker. And she had said that during the course of a film, John Waters is kind of a control freak about his own life. He's not a spontaneous kind of person. Every single day he has like law cards that tell that where he has everything that he's going to do during the day mapped out. And it's how he needs that order in his life. And on the set, he's kind of the same way. And she had said that during the final scene in this movie where Pecker has decided, he didn't like what the New York art scene were doing to him and his family and how it was changing his life. And he didn't really like that. And he decided to take it back and start showcasing his artwork at his dad's bar. And all of a sudden, all of these people that were taking advantage of him and using him were being shown for who they were in his artwork. And they kind of let loose and let go. And you have this bar sequence where all, the lesbian strippers are going nuts and all of the gay strippers are dancing around and teabagging the art dudes, and Patricia Hearst is having a great time and everyone's going nuts. And supposedly Patricia Hearst looked over at John Waters and he was just grinning from ear to ear watching this go on. And she said it was one of the first times she had seen him like that on any of the movies that she had been on with him. And John Waters heard this and made reference to that if this bar was real, that he had seen in these people, that he would have been there every single day of his life. Yeah. And I think Andrew, what you're saying is really true, because I think this very much is like, what if he would have just stayed doing what he was doing before? Would that mean that all of the people that he loved would have still been with him and he'd still be making art with them today?
I don't see how, once you kind of posit that, how you cannot think that when you see this movie, because of his jaunt into, studio filmmaking for a couple of movies, and how, quickly after the first failure, he was, back to where he was before. I just don't think I can't watch this now and not think that, particularly in this particular round when we have watched all of his movies in order. I thought about it the whole time I was watching it.
Yeah, it's really hard not to find the subtext of it, even though, kind of like some other directors where there is an underlying message to the film and you're aware of it, but the director doesn't want to let you in on that. They want to keep that stoic kind of, this is just a movie I wrote. This has nothing to do with my life. When he is getting some stuff out. He really is. And I dig that, because he doesn't do that. And so it's great. And I don't need all his movies to be the same, Right. No, and they definitely aren't. And I think the next two movies we'll be talking about very much are completely different than some of the stuff that we've kind of gotten used to with him, especially Cecil B. Demented. Very different. Very, very different. But this one, I got to say, there is kind of a big gleefulness to the entire film. It is kind of light and breezy and fun. And I enjoyed this. I really, really enjoyed this movie. Would I say that it's as good as some of the other ones? I don't know. I think after rewatching this, I watched it twice in the last week. I think it's something I'm going to be popping on more. I think I'm kind of like a little miffed at myself all these years for not. And maybe it's just a matter of maybe I just needed to get to a point in my life where I looked at things a little bit differently and kind of appreciated John Waters a little more subtle films. Not that it's hard to say that Pecker is a subtle film.
But it's a comment on irony, right? And that's something you and I talk about a lot,
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
So what you're saying is you're going to be giving John Waters Pecker a chance.
I will be looking at John Waters PECKER much more in the future.
Much more closely.
Much more closely in the future. I'll be looking at his PECKER.
Spectacular.
But I think, as we grow as people, I think our tastes do change, so this is a movie I feel that should be given a second chance by the people that have kind of dismissed this as lower tier. John Waters, I think, are doing it a great disservice. Do I think it's perfect? No, but I do think it's a movie that is fun. And if you're a fan of John Waters films, I don't know how you couldn't have fun watching this movie. Amanda, ultimately, what do you think? Is this one of your more favorite ones?
Yeah, it is. It is. I really like it. Like I said, it feels like raunchy, silly John Waters without being so heavy and insulting to, I guess, some of my personal hangups. It just is goofy and funny, and the characters to me are relatable because I feel like I know Mima. I've met Mima.
I think we've met everyone that's in this film.
I've met Mima. I've met PECKER. I've met all these people in my life, and so it's pretty relatable.
Right. Well, I think, and this is what made me kind of warm up to it, is that all of the characters in this community feel like small town people.
Yeah, they feel like people I would know.
Right.
Especially the homeless people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really like it.
Yeah.
It's in my top.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely interesting. Angelique?
Not at the top, but nowhere near the bottom. I mean, I kind of feel like you. Like I should have given this one, more of a fair shake. I might watch it again. You never know.
That doesn't sound like a real shiny recommendation there.
I mean, it's not. Hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm in the laundromat watching people pee into dryers.
Okay.
Hump dryer.
Yeah, can we talk about that dude humping that dryer?
Hurry up before my corners run out.
Take my picture.
Right.
Take my picture.
Take a picture of this.
Oh my God, that scene kills me. Like, here's Christina Ricci trying to be all serious about, hey man, you're changing, don't become an asshole. And then you have this dude trying to get PECKER's attention. Hey, take my picture, and he's humping a fucking.
But don't you think, dude, that after John Waters movies come out and became popular, he had weird motherfuckers coming up to him going like, put me in your movie, and do some weird shit like eat dog shit in front of him. Can I be in your new movie?
I'm sure. I'm so sure, and I think, once you posit that idea that this really does kind of mirror a lot of his kind of life arc with making movies, you do start seeing more and more things in there that I'm sure are super true about, the moment they get back from New York City, their house gets robbed and everyone's like, hey, you're rich now. So I'm sure he had a lot of people coming after him.
I'm entitled to ask you or take what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. So has to. Absolutely. Seth, ultimately, what do you think?
I like it. I think it's a good movie. I think John Waters PECKER is going to be a grower, not a shower for me.
I see Gordon like that one.
I definitely am going to give it, more frequent. Well, this is my first time watching it, but I'm definitely going to pop it in the rotation. And I think there's enough that I like about it to really latch onto and give it future opportunities. I love the characters in this movies, and a handful of scenes are really great. I just think subsequent viewings will work better as a whole for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is definitely a movie that gets better over time. I think it's really stayed the course, where some other films of this era of the late 90s comedies and stuff just haven't held up. I was very surprised. I was a little timid walking into this one. Like, I was excited to watch it because I hadn't seen it in years, but I just do remember that initial viewing back in the day when it came out and me being so thoroughly crushed, not thinking it was very funny.
It's way less 90s than Serial Mom.
Oh, big time. Absolutely. And it does feel like an indie flick. It really does, like an indie flick of that era where there's an earnestness to it. So I think this is, like most of his films have kind of shown us, he was far ahead of the curve with what he was trying to communicate and the movies he was making. And unfortunately, this movie was, as we had said, it was another bomb. It was like the third straight bomb he had made, where I believe the budget of this was like $6 to $8 million, and it only made $2 million back at box office.
I really think the idea of John Waters is what a lot of a major part of the fandom for him is. You know, the character of John Waters and this idea of him from his most successful or most visible, or from his studio movies. You know,
right.
If it didn't look like another Hairspray or Crybaby, people weren't going to go.
Right. Well, at this point in his career, as we had kind of alluded to in the last episode, he wasn't just a filmmaker anymore. He was writing books. Mm-hmm. He was going on comedy tours. And he was a photographer as well. He was no longer just this renegade filmmaker making weird stuff. He was a public figure. So obviously he was no longer someone on the periphery. And when that happens, preconceived notions of what you're making are going to derail most people's opinions, on what it is you're making. So he had to walk a double-edged sword, I'm sure, with a lot of this stuff. And unfortunately, most people just didn't get it, myself included, to be honest, because I gave John Waters PECKER a hard ride and did it. And it's too bad. It's too bad, because I really think, there's a lot of spirit in this one. I love it. It's going to be something I watch more and more and more. So Andrew, we know you love this one. Where would you place this one in the pantheon on all the films that we've watched so far?
Oh, this is definitely top 5 for me, for sure. I guess because of my brushes with the professional entertainment world, be it my days of the band, where I've talked on your podcast about having looked down the barrel of being signed to a subsidiary of a major record label and not doing that, to all the times I rub elbows now in my professional life as a journalist with people in the entertainment world, and just constant reaffirming that I do not want to be there, and that I am happiest doing things artistically the way that I'm doing them. PECKER to me just speaks on multiple levels, not just as a fan of John Waters and his history, but as an artist myself, and plus it's just so goddamn hilarious, this movie. So I mentioned earlier, a lot of my favorite John Waters lines, the funniest lines to me, are all said in this one. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel by the numbers. It doesn't feel like he's doing what is expected of him. This is one of those rare times where he went back to just making the kind of thing he wanted to make. And I know he had to get money from somewhere, so there is a degree of compromise, and we'll never know what he might have just made of his own. But this is one of the most fascinating movies in his catalog, for sure.
Can you believe it, folks? We only have 2 John Waters movies left. Does that kind of bring a tear to your eye a little bit?
It does to me, because I'm thinking I'm not going to like them as much as I used to.
Well, after this episode, I'm actually really excited to watch the last 2.
Maybe kind of see the last 2 with a different.
I'm going to have fun talking about Cecil B. Demented with you. I can see that happening. I haven't been back to those in years, those 2.
Well, like PECKER, I haven't watched, or at least Cecil B. Demented, I have not watched that since it initially came out. So I don't even have an opinion on it anymore, because I don't even remember it. So
you will.
So yeah, I'm a little depressed. Only have 2 movies left of this, but I have decided today that we are going to do an epilogue episode after we do A Dirty Shame. In episode 103, we're going to do Lust in the Dust.
Yeah.
So
that's going to make me happy as hell, man.
So we will have 3 episodes left.
That's great.
Amanda's giving me a very strange look right now. Why are you giving me such a strange look?
I've never even heard of Lust in the Dust.
Lust in the Dust is a Paul Bartel movie he made with Divine before Divine died.
Because John Waters didn't want to direct a movie he didn't write. It's the only reason why he didn't direct that movie.
Oh. I like the title, Lust in the Dust.
Well, it's a Western. So we'll be doing Lust in the Dust coming up. And yeah, we're almost done, folks. Thanks for sticking with us for over a year doing all these John Waters episodes. So this is the portion of the show where my guests shamelessly shill the fuck out of you. So, Seth, why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you outside of Astro Radio Z?
You can find me at Celluloid Terror on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Celluloid Terror on Blogspot for all sorts of horror and exploitation reviews.
Angelique Bone.
You can find me on Facebook, not that hard to find. You can also find me on an Astro Radio Z family podcast, The Film Jerks. Next episode, we're going to stick our chopsticks into Kung Pao, Enter the Fist. So that's exciting. You can also find some reviews by myself and some other funny cats at thelosthighway.com.
Mr. Andrew Shearer.
I always thought the Enter the Fist was weird because a fist enters you. Huh?
Yes.
Right.
My ladies and gentlemen, my friends and I make movies here in Athens, Georgia, under the banner of Gonzorific, GONZORIFFIC. You can find our stuff on YouTube for free. You can find us for a small rental fee on Amazon On Demand. Our movies we have there are Fake Blood, Pajama Nightmare, The Underground Cinema, Cinema with an S, and the latest Late Night Cable. And if you like physical media, you can go to gonzorific.com and buy stuff like Dr. Humbenstein's Erotic Castle, Dollface, and what's that other one? It escapes me. Oh, The Erotic Couch.
Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this lovely episode. On the Facebook group today, I decided to throw my hat into the Ghoul Summer ring, and I am putting it to you, Astro Zombies, to vote for what horrible ghoul movie I'm going to watch for our Ghoul Summer episode coming up in July. If you're not familiar with what Ghoul Summer is a tradition started by Mike Dick of Kissing Contest and the boys at Junk Food Dinner, who you guys have heard Parker come on my show before. They do Ghoul Summer episodes every year where they sit and watch the most morally bankrupt, disgusting, disturbing movies they possibly can find. This year, I'm throwing my hat in the ring, and I'm going to do one episode where, depending on what you guys want me to do, I will talk about that movie or those movies. So go to the Astro Radio Z Facebook group, join in the poll. So far, it looks like everybody wants me to do the Traces of Death series, and that kind of kills me a little bit inside of my heart. But that I guess is the point of Ghoul Summer.
Well, that's the only ones I haven't watched. I've seen all those other ones I've never wanted to see. I'm too much of a pussy to watch those.
Oh, my God. It's been a joke between Corey Udler and I because he found all of a sudden, just like out of the blue in his office, a box set of Traces of Death DVDs.
Oh, badass.
Yeah, somebody put that out. Oh, God. It wasn't Brain Damage, was it?
I don't know who it was, but I'm sure it was somebody just left it in his office. I'm sure it was Blade Braxton. I'm sure he left it there.
I freaking love those
he's
movies.
been telling me. What's that?
I love those movies.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I love them.
Oh, my gosh, Angelique. Oh, my gosh. Well, then you're coming on that Ghoul Summer episode if I have to do these goddamn Traces of Death movies.
All right.
You're going to come on that damn episode.
Okay.
But everybody go over to the Facebook group and vote, add on, put whatever horrible ghoulish movie you want me to watch for that episode up on there, and everyone will vote. And in the next month, I'll make the decision as to what horrible, disgusting thing I'm going to watch for Ghoul Summer this year. And it's already been said by Daniel Edenfield that he's looking forward to hearing my misery. That should be, I told him that should be the tagline for Astro Radio Z. Hear my misery. So
that's not why I want to hear it. I just am curious, but don't want to actually watch it.
I also said on the Facebook group, isn't most of my show Ghoul Summer anyway?
It is.
I do a lot of.
I was surprised to see you pushing a Ghoul Summer show today because I thought, isn't that just kind of what it is all over
You think everything I watch is Ghoul Summer?
Wow.
You think I watch nothing but ghoul movies?
It's a ghoul summer.
Oh my
share a
gosh.
house.
Wow.
We share a house. I'm familiar with your movie catalog.
Oh my God. Well, anyways, go do that, folks, and anticipate the next witchcraft episode coming up soon. I'm going to drop a hint. I've seen the 3 movies.
That's not a Homer Simpson.
That good?
That's a Glenn.
I don't know. That sounds more like your soul leaving your body.
It is my soul leaving my body. So look forward to that, folks, coming up soon. The last witchcraft episode, hopefully forever. Well, the last one I'll ever fucking do. I'll tell you that right now. So thanks for listening and have a good night.
I can laugh when things ain't funny. Happy-go-lucky me. Yeah, I can smile when I ain't got no money. Happy-go-lucky me.
You can find Astro Radio Z on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, YouTube, and anywhere that podcasts are found. Please subscribe, share, rate, and review. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and email us questions, concerns, or just general chatter at astroradiozpodcast@gmail.com. Coming from me, Derek Carey, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Happy-go-lucky me.